Yo, what's poppin' guys, Sizzle here, and in this video I'm going to be giving you a rundown on all the different Mario Odyssey movement options. Not like literally everyone, but everything you'll need to know for a game of Super Mario Odyssey hide and seek to both hide and chase people, unless you're playing with some true, devious masterminds that have mastered all their motion inputs and do some crazy trick jumps. This will be good for pretty much everyone. But yeah, before I get into like the more stuff that you probably won't know, I'm just going to start from the beginning, just in case we have people here who maybe haven't played in like 3 or 4 years that just need a rundown of basic controls. First off, right stick moves the camera, left or right front trigger, like you can see in the input display in the bottom, either or will center your camera, but only when you're not moving. You can see I'm spamming those buttons and it's not getting centered just at all. But if I let go movement for a second and then press it and then go, I can do that. So you want to get used to kind of using the right stick to move your camera as you're running, because centering is just never really an option for you, just to be frank. Next up, we got crouching. Crouching is tied to the back, left, and right trigger. You press either button, you can crouch. Go over more of what that enables in a second. To move around, you just push the left stick around. But if I push it left, I go left. If I push it right, I go right. If I move it around in a circle, I move around in a circle. If I push it slowly, I walk slowly. If I push it while I'm crouching, I crouch walk. Right, pretty simple stuff there. Jumping is either A or B. They both jump. They both do the jump input. You can press either or. You can see I'm alternating between them, and Mario keeps jumping. Throwing Cappy is tied to Y or X, either or. If you hold it out, Cappy gets held out just like that, as long as you hold it down up until a certain point where he eventually returns to you, I think. Pretty straightforward stuff. If you press that button in the air, Cappy still gets thrown. To do a dive, which is super useful for just getting quick bursts of speed, you have to press the crouch button while you jump, and then press the Y or X button, and then you'll do a dive, just like that. To roll, you have to be crouched on the ground and then press Y or X and you'll start rolling. That's super useful because it's your fastest grounded movement option. I will also say it's worth noting that talking to NPCs is tied to A. So like if you ever come by keep a free running here, if you press A, you'll talk to him, but B, which is also jump, won't talk to people. So I would get used to pressing B when you have to jump around. Yeah, so that's the basics of that's diving, that's cap throws, that's all that type of stuff. Next up, I'm going to go over the different types of jumps that are available to you. So first off, you got normal, normal jumps. You press the jump button, you jump. Second off, pretty normal one is triple jumps, where if you're moving at all and you just jump 3 times back to back to back whenever you touch the ground. And it has to be pretty much whenever you touch the ground. If you kind of delay it, you won't get a triple jump. You can see I'm like delaying it there and I wasn't getting it. But yeah, triple jumping is super useful for getting a lot of height, but it takes a while to give you height, so there's some other better options that I'm going to show off real quick. The best one from a standstill is a ground pound jump, because it doesn't push you back or forward, but it gives you a little bit less height than a triple jump or a backflip. Right, so ground pound jump, to ground pound you just crouch when you're in the air, and don't press anything else, and the ground pound. If you then jump out of it, you get a big boost of height, which can be useful for getting up the places really quick without kind of going back. If you need a little bit of extra height, and this is useful for like some places in Seaside, and probably not other places that I don't know about, you press crouch and then jump. You'll do a backflip, which gives you slightly more height than a ground pound jump. It's very slight, so you almost never need it. Ground pound jumping is generally just better, because it doesn't put you back, and making you go backward means you're going to be closer to the guy chasing you. It could get you caught versus just hitting a ground pound jump instead. Another really useful one, mainly in chases, is a side flip, where if you run one way and then run the other way, you see how Mario kind of like sparks on the ground for a second. If you jump when that spark happens, he'll do a side flip, just like that, which gives you a little bit less height than the other 2 options, but it's the fastest one to execute, and it's super useful for turning around and keeping momentum in the chase, right? So someone's chasing you, side flip, dive, and just kind of keep going. Another thing worth mentioning is when you're rolling, to keep rolling, you either can keep spamming X or Y, which is a little bit slow, or something super useful is Odyssey has motion controls, and if you if you shake your controller when you're rolling, it'll automatically keep rolling, and it'll make you move faster than you normally could. Right, so you can see this is me shaking, going pretty quick, going pretty fast, and this is me pressing Y and X and just alternating. Like, it's way slower. You need to get used to shaking the controller whenever you want to roll. It's the fastest way to move on the ground by far, and it's super useful to kind of just do that everywhere. Another useful jump is the long jump. which can be useful for getting horizontal distance very quickly. The way it works is as long as you're moving forward, you got some type of forward momentum, and then you press crouch and jump, then you'll do a long jump, right? So crouch and jump, boom, long jump, long jump. Even just a little bit is enough to do it. It's worth noting, though, if you're not moving forward or if you're crouched before, because you want to press crouch and jump at the same time. If you don't do that, if you crouch before, you'll just do a backflip instead, which will generally get you caught because you're expecting a long jump. So that's definitely worth being a little bit cautious of. Now, the most useful of all the jumps is a cap jump, where you have to hold out Cappy with either Y or X, pick your poison, whichever one you want to do. In my case, I prefer doing it with Y. So you jump up, you throw Cappy with Y, and then when you throw Cappy with Y, you put the inputs in for a dive, right? So throw them out and dive, and then you get like an extra little jump in the air, and this is vital for getting any amount of height, pretty much getting anywhere on the map. Another useful thing for getting some more height, some more distance, is when Cappy returns to you off of a cap jump. You do what's called a cap return bounce or whatever, or twirl, something like that, just a cap return. Where when he returns to you, see I get that rainbow twirl. If I press A or B, just either jump button right when he returns to me. And that kind of stalls you in the air for a second at no extra cost to yourself, and then you can dive out of there to get like the maximum distance, right? So for like a maximum horizontal jump, it's like long jump, cap bounce, cap return, and then that. You can also wall jump. I guess that's technically a jump now that I think about it. Where if you walk into a wall and then are in the air, you can jump by pressing the jump button, and then you can dive out of that pretty easily. Something worth noting with a cap bounce is you only get one cap bounce when you're actually airborne, which obviously isn't great. A bit of a problem, right? Because if you then go to do second one, so if I do this, I do second one, you just go right through your cap, and you don't cap bounce, and you'll dive. Definitely worth being aware of that you only get one of those. But you can do it after any jump. It's just a bonus jump on top of anything else. It's super, super useful. Speaking of super useful, I'm going to go over spinning. And this is the way to do most things fastest from a standstill. So, for example, let's say you leave a sub area. You should, while you're leaving a sub area, if you spin like this, your character will start spinning the second that they can. And if you spin and then jump and then ground pound, that's the fastest way to do pretty much any action. Right, so for example, if I want to roll, and I just want to, like, roll, let's say from here to the ocean, right, this is normally how you do it, to start shaking off a roll. But if instead of just doing that, I instead do a spin, ground pound, roll, it's much faster. But you don't even have to spin for it to be faster. Ground pounding and then rolling is faster, and you get a bigger initial burst of speed than if you just roll outright. So it's always worth ground pounding when you roll if you have the chance. Obviously, if you're being chased and you have to just like keep running, then just roll out a long jump or something, that's fine as well. But if you're at a standstill, let's say you see someone approaching, let's say that rock is someone, I'm like, oh shit, someone's coming, just instantly ground pound, and then, don't dive like that, instantly ground pound, and then start rolling away, and that's the fastest getaway you will have. Another useful thing is if you spin, you can long jump instantly, I think? Yeah. Spinning can make you long jump instantly from a standstill, versus normally if you try to do that, you just backflip. So that can be super useful. It's a super useful niche little tech. Speaking of super useful niche little tech, we're going to go over, I don't even know what this is called. I think it's called cap vaulting or whatever. Basically, when you throw Cappy on the ground like this, and then go into him, you get a cap bounce, but you also can do a second cap bounce, like a second caption. Right. So if I throw him out like this, and then I roll into him, I can then do another cap bounce and go from there. Generally, in normal gameplay, it's not super useful, but for getting horizontal distance to get to certain spots, it is a vital technique to know. I'm going to quickly cut to me going to a useful sub-area to go test it out in. This is like a super useful place for showing off cap vaulting and what's called vectoring, where basically after a cap vault, you go diagonally and then just get hella speed. This only works if you're really high up, like somewhere like this, and need to go somewhere very low. But there's a few different places where this can apply, so it's worth knowing. Like you do like this, and then you go diagonally, you get a lot of speed. If you do it more properly, you can get a lot of speed. You combine that with like a wall jump, and a cap return, and then a dive. You can see I went from all the way up there, all the way down to here by vaulting, by having a second cap jump all the way at the end. Another useful thing, if you fall from super high, it has to be super high, I don't even think this is high enough, but if you fall from super high, you'll get stunned, generally. Even higher than that, I guess. But to cancel out a stun, let's say you're going from the top of like New Donk City Tower or whatever, you just have to like do pretty much anything, right? If you're like right here and you ground pound, you're right here and you dive, or you're right there and you throw your cap out, it cancels all of your falling momentum, so you won't get stunned when you normally would have. So that's definitely worth keeping in mind. And the only other really thing that, it's not really movement, but it's worth knowing, if you go up to a ledge very, very, very slowly, kind of like edge yourself over to it, Mario will grab the ledge like this, and this can be super useful for hiding in places, because you can pretty much only see your hands depending on the angle, depending on your hat. And then to move around, you can just go left or right, and then if you shake, it moves faster. This is true for pretty much anything. It's true for when you're using any captures. This is true for when you're, you know, in base Mario form, everything like that. Everything just goes faster when you shake. Other useful stuff when you shake is if you shake left or right, Mario does like a little spin like this, and this is the fastest way to capture stuff. If you can get consistent with this movement, let's say I want to throw, you know, my cap onto this flower, right? Normally it's like that, but with a sideways spin or whatever, it's just instant. It's instant. It's a little bit faster. Mario throws out his cap faster. The capture happens faster. You can kind of tell the timing difference right there. And that can be super useful to get down. There's also some other crazy movement jank where if you like you can throw your cap up by just throwing it up with the motion controls and down. And with a similar thing, although that one's way harder to do, you can see like the little cube in the middle of the controller. That's my motion controls. Just me trying to like throw it down. It never works for me. But that stuff can be super, super useful. Also, when you're spinning like this, if you hold the ground pound button, you fall faster, which is also useful. And this is treated the same as when you spin and jump up like this, right? It's the same as a spin pound and things like that. The last kind of stuff to go over is all the water-related movement. So first off, one of the most useful things, this is pretty much only in Lake Kingdom as far as I know, but it could be useful elsewhere, is you can cap return on the water, right? You know, like kind of like vault in the water. So you know how like when we throw it on the ground, we do this, we still keep our cap jump, right? We can do that same thing, but with the water. Except with the water, what we do is a cap return bounce, where basically when you throw it out and then have it return to you, if you press A as it returns to you, you'll do a jump and then be able to cap jump afterward. And that is something that's useful because you can do it when you're in the water. If you're at the surface, you throw out the cap, and as it returns to you, you jump, you can cap bounce, you know, you can go onto the wall jump your way up, and then get up here. Right? It's super useful for like this pretty much exclusively, but any map with the water, you can do that in, and it can be useful for juking and stuff. Speaking of water, though, water movement's pretty straightforward. When you're underground, or when you're underwater, when you just move around, Mario moves around. If you spam A or B, he goes up to the surface as fast as possible. Unless you capture a Cheep Cheep or something, it doesn't get any faster than that. But if you're stuck underwater, let's say you're going through the temple there or something, if you press, it's the dive buttons, right? So back, left, and Y or X, as long as you don't have Cappy out, then you can dive forward like this, right? Just press them at the same time. The dive inputs, Mario will like move forward like this. You kind of spam it to get through the water quite quickly without having Cappy on you, which is super, super useful for being able to move around in the water. That's pretty much all there is to water movement, unless I'm forgetting something. I am forgetting something. The fastest way to move through the water is to not be in the water, right? So the fastest way to go from this island to that island is actually to jump off the island, you know, do a cap bounce, do a dive, go out of the water, do another cap bounce, do another dive, do another cap bounce, another dive. Like, get out of the water as much as you can. Water movement is just inherently slow. So the fast way to move in the water is to get out of the water and cap bounce your way to victory, right? Just cap bounce and then dive, just like that. Just kind of rinse and repeat. It's the fastest way to move in the water. Really simple stuff. The last thing worth mentioning is in the water, the fastest way to move is always just going to be capturing a Cheep Cheep. They're built to work underwater. And something useful for capturing Cheep Cheep and things like that is if you throw out your cap and then shake, Cappy will try to home in on stuff, which can extend how far Cappy can go. Right, so normally Cappy can't reach the fish from here, but if I shake, notice how he like kind of homed in, and now I got my fish. And if you press the Y and B buttons on fish specifically, you can do this little spin attack thing that makes you move faster. If you shake, with most captures, when you shake, you move faster, but with the fish, to move faster, it's Y and B, and then shaking does an attack, which I don't really know how often that's useful, but it's something you can do. And to uncapture, because just capture right there on the cap to uncapture, it's the back left or back right button. The only other thing really worth mentioning is if you accidentally throw your hat on the Scarecrow, or maybe it was deliberate, if you jump on the Scarecrow, he gives the hat back, and then you can cancel that and kind of go back and day. But yeah, I believe that's every piece of movement that you need to know. I don't think there's anything else to it. The rest of it's all combining it fluidly to be able to do stuff like this, just like at a moment's notice when you're trying to run away from people, get around that corner, get up to here. If they don't got that movement tech down like you do, you'll be absolutely golden. And if they're up here, you can just like boom, not like that. You'd wanna not suck for like 2 seconds. But yeah, the spin long jump. There you go. That's what I was trying to do. That's a super useful thing. You can also spin pound long jump, I think, to get slightly more speed, but there's like a lot of like minute stuff you can do on top of all this stuff just to do it faster, do it better. But this is all you technically need to go about and play the game. To open doors that are closed, you just throw Cappy at them and they'll open. To break boxes, you throw Cappy at them and they'll open. To go through pipes, you'll be prompted on your screen. Press the back button to enter. All very simple, very straightforward stuff. And with that being said, the only other thing worth mentioning is wall stalling, right? Let's say if you fall off the map and you only get 5 more seconds on the clock, if you're like on the wall, you can either, there's a few different methods. The most simple one is just mash Y, and that'll do a pretty good job of stalling on the wall. This is generally kind of the best method, but you can also, depending if people are coming at you, people are chasing you, you can wall jump, throw Cap out, Cap return, which is a little bit worse in terms of stalling, but it can make you less predictable, so if someone tries to jump down and get you and ruin your stalling, you can do that. And the last inputs to cover are all tied to hide and seek, right? So if you press the front left trigger and left, that puts you in hide and seek mode. If you press it again, you go out of hide and seek mode. Pretty simple stuff. If you want to disable music, it's the front left trigger and up, but that only works when you're in hide and seek mode, and also only works when you're like in whatever sub area you're in. The second you go somewhere else, generally the music turns back on. So for example, for this recording and ones like it, I actually have a separate mod installed specifically just to disable Mario Odyssey music, which I guess I'll link in the description. It's pretty simple to install, as long as you had to install the actual Odyssey mod itself for hide and seek. Another useful one is when you're in Seeker mode specifically, you press front left and the down on the D-pad, you can see it resets the timer to 0. If you then hold right when you're in hider mode, you can get time back. So let's say, I was at 234 and I accidentally unpause, right? I can press L and down to reset it and then hold right to get back to 234. And the timer pauses when you were in Seeker mode, so you just want to press up on the D-pad to toggle between hider and Seeker mode. The last thing worth mentioning is to properly pause your game. So let's say someone in your session disconnected, you have to pause so they can get back to their spot. You want to go into snapshot mode, which you do by pressing down on the D-pad, and it might look like you can look around and see people, but you can only see what was already there on your screen when you press down on the D-pad. So if this person disconnected and they're coming from the Odyssey running up there, you won't see them, and it'll also pause your timer if you're in hiding mode. And I think that's everything there is to know. Yeah. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns in the comments below. Can't promise that I'll respond to them, but hopefully this gave you a good idea of all the different Mario Odyssey movement options for ground and land. The big kind of takeaways are cap bounces are super useful. You can do like the cap vaulting in specific spots. It's kind of a vital tech to learn to be able to get distance. To be able to go as fast as possible on land, you don't actually want to spam long jumps. You want to roll and shake. And then to move fastest in the water, you want to get out of the water. Just like that. But yeah, see you in the next one. Goodbye.